What I'm going to introduce to you now is how to actually plot our drawings out. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be plotting them to a PDF. So we're not actually going to be plotting them to any paper. We're not going to be using any paper, but we're going to be plotting to a file that will have our line weights and our plan on it. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be plotting from model space, which typically you plot from paper space, but model space also has, not only the advantage of, basically this is just to introduce you to printing to begin with, but what model space is advantageous for is that it's really good. I find it to be really good when I'm starting to make a physical model, that essentially what I can do is I can plot my drawing to a scale from model space and have it as a guide for me. So what we want to do to begin with is there's a few ways that we can get to our plotter manager. And one of them is by typing plot. You can do Control+P, and the little printer icon is up here. And AutoCAD calls it plotting, and typically plotting refers to any large size, large scale plotting or printing basically. So anything that's really bigger than 11 by 17 is typically referred to as plotting. So when I do Control+P, okay, or type in plot, what comes up is essentially the printing dialog for AutoCAD. You can see some of the options. One of them is page setup. So right now there's nothing under there, but when we start to plot, you'll see that it does actually save the previous plot, so it saves us a step in actually having to go back and do all the settings again if you just want to print again real quick. The printer plotter, so right now we have to define what that's going to be. And as I said, what we're going to be plotting to is a PDF file. So there's a couple that are usually associated with AutoCAD. If you have the Adobe Creative Suites installed on your computer, you'll see Adobe PDF, which is a common plotter for PDF. And what you can also use is the DWG to PDF plotter. Okay. When I do that, you'll see that some of these options change. You'll see that it saves it to a file, so on and so forth. Now, under paper size, what you see here are the paper sizes that are actually associated with this printer. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be printing it on 11 by 17. So I'm going to find my 11 by 17 inch option. Okay. And then it's going to ask me, what do I want to plot? So there's a few, four that you can choose. You can choose display, extents, limits, okay, is referring to your drawing limits, and window. Typically what I usually do is I usually do extents, but if I have information that's floating off in the distance that I do want to keep, but I don't want to plot, then you can choose window. Okay, and if I choose extents, okay, as I said, it'll just choose the extents of anything that's in my model space. If I choose window, it pops me back into model space, and I essentially have to define the window of the objects that I want to print. So it's just setting one point, an opposite point, and then it'll register that. If I ever want to change it, I can click on the window again, and you'll see that now it grayed out everything else, and this is actually the area that I'm going to print, so I can either hit escape or I can redefine it. And if I do either one of those, it'll bump me back into the plot dialog. Now what we always want to do is we always want to center our plot no matter what, so that should be a good habit for you to get into. And then what we want to do is we want to set our plot scale, okay? And the difference from plotting from model space, between model space and paper space, is that in paper space we use viewports to determine our scale. In model space, what we have to do, because we don't have any viewports and because everything is full scale, we need to actually set what that scale is going to be, okay? So we should never do fit to paper because that's technically not a scale. So I'm going to deselect that. And you might need to see at what scale your drawing best fits on that type of sheet, size of sheet, whether it's 11 by 17 or whether it's a different one that you're using. In other jobs you might be having. For this class, we're going to be doing 11 by 17. So under scale, I'm going to first start off with 1/8 scale. So this is an 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. You guys should be used to the architectural scale by now. And that's, a pretty good starting point. So I'm going to see if it fits on a scale. Now, what happens is I look to my preview up here, okay? This hatched area basically shows the area of my model that is going to either fit or not fit on the page. If it doesn't fit on the page, okay, you'll see that it has a bright red outline. And basically that's an indicator telling me that the area that I picked at the scale that I picked is too big for this sheet. Okay, if it doesn't have the red on there, it is fine. If it has the red on there on two sides, it just basically means that it's getting cut off on two sides. Let's continue with this. I'm going to change my scale. Let's bump it down to 1/16. Okay, I try to stay away from odd scales, you know, such as, 1/32 or 3/32 or 3/16. If you can stay away from those, do that. If you can't help it, then sometimes you just have to deal with it. So right now, basically, I have this all set up, but I don't know what it looks like. Okay, I don't know if it fits. And sometimes also, just as a note, that if it shows that it's cutting off on both sides, okay, only two sides and not all four, you might just want to go into preview to see if that's actually the case. Because sometimes if your window is bigger, but you can still have some room, it will give you that warning, but in reality, your drawing might not cut off. So it actually comes with a preview. I'm going to click on preview down here, and it's going to ask me if it's, that if I want to continue my annotation scale. We're going to get into that later, so just say continue. And you'll see, oh, there's the stamp that's showing you that this is an educational product, and you are printing with an educational product. But this is essentially what your 11/17 sheet should look like with your plan on it. So my scale's fine. This all looks good. The only thing that's missing is that I should be plotting with not only line weights, okay, I can use my scroll to zoom in, and you'll see that there's no line weights, and you'll see that my lines are in color, okay? But what I want is I want my lines to be black, and I want all of my lines to be associated with the line weight, okay? So I'm going to hit escape out of here, and I'm going to expand my plotter manager. Okay, so there's a little button down in the lower right that allows you to expand it, and this gives you more options. Now typically these are all fine and you shouldn't have to do anything with them, but you'll see that up at the top it says plot style table, okay, quote unquote pen assignments, in the parentheses, not in quotes. And underneath that, if you expand this, you'll see that there are various CTB files, okay, that are associated with this file. And essentially these are pen weights and pen settings that AutoCAD automatically has defaulted into this program, okay? We can't use any of those. We have to essentially make our own, because we have our own colors, and our pen settings are going to hook up to the colors that we assigned our layers, okay? So under this list, I'm going to go to New, and it's going to ask me if I want to add a color-dependent plot style table. So that's what CTB means, that it's color-dependent. And that means that anything, it doesn't care what layer it's on, it doesn't care what that object is, okay? All it cares is that if it is blue, it's going to print out as a black pen at a certain pen weight. So I'm going to say, this is to create my new CTB file. So I'm going to say start from scratch. I'm going to go next. I'm going to give it a name, something that you're going to remember. So I'll say 14 underscore first name underscore last name. And then I'm just going to note that it's CTB, just so I know it's my CTB file. So I'm going to click on next. And before I go to finish, I'm going to go to my, you can either click out of this, or I'm going to go to my plot style table editor. And this is essentially where we set up our pen weights, okay? So you'll notice that there's a color for every single color that we have, which you'll see under the, the color options for your layers, okay? One option that firms do is they actually give each one of these, well, there's two things that you could do essentially, to back up a little bit. One strategy that you can have is to have less colors, okay, which means less pen weights to assign, but it means that you're going to have layers with the same colors, which is what we have. I find it to be a little bit easier, okay? It just takes a little bit of getting used to. The other strategy for working with this is that each single color has its own pen weight, so that every layer has its own color, and it's easy to see what's on different layers. You'll find that each firm deals with it on their own differently. But what we want to do is we want to start to assign our pen weights, okay, to our colors. So to begin with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my list, okay, that I see in the handout for this week, and I'm going to click on color 1. Okay, color 1, what we wanted to do is we want to change the color, okay, to black. And what this means is that's setting it to a black pen. Okay, otherwise, if it uses object color and the object is red, it's going to print it out as red if you have a color printer. Okay, if not, it's going to print it out as gray. Don't worry about the dither or the grayscale. Screening we're not going to worry about, but the line weight we want to set to 0.3. Okay, yellow, we don't have any. Green, okay, again, we want it to be a black pen, and we want it to have a line weight of 0.2. Okay, let's do blue. Blue, we're going to have a color of black and a line weight of 0.15. Okay, and you'll see that this is the scale. It's the same scale that you would have for your physical pens, and it's using the line weights. So I'm done for this for now. Okay, I'm just going to save and close, and then I'm going to finish. And you'll see that what it does is it puts my CTB file right in there. So now that if I go to preview, you'll see that now where I have assigned pen weights, okay, you'll see that I have dark black lines for my walls, okay, and I have light lines for my doors here. Okay, now the one thing is, it's kind of a tricky thing, is that we actually didn't set our white. Okay, so white does actually print out black, it doesn't print out white, so we want to make sure that we give that a pen assignment. Okay, that even though yes it prints out black, we still need to give it a pen assignment for consistency. Okay, now what I want to do is, before I do that, I want to make that change. So I'm going to click on cancel, and what I want to do is I want to make the change to my CTB file. So I have to find it. Okay, so if you type in Styles Manager, okay, and this is where the Mac people might have an issue, I'm not sure. But basically this is the place, okay, like AutoCAD stored its templates in a certain place, this is where AutoCAD stores its CTB files. So to change my CTB file, all I have to do is double click on it, and it opens up, okay? But it doesn't look like it's editable, and that's because it's not in the right view. So what we need to do is, you'll see that there's a table view, okay? And then you'll see that a form view. And the form view is where we're going to make those changes, okay? And this, you know, you should recognize from what we did before. So you'll see that there's a color 1, color 2, okay, we didn't assign anything to it. Color 3 we did, color 4. So we'll just finish these in as, you know, for the first part of our homework. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to black, okay? It's this, even though it's white, okay, color 7 is white, it does show up as black. This is traditionally a very weird thing in AutoCAD. But just keep in mind that it is white, even though it shows up as black. I'm going to make it into a black line, and it's going to be 0.45. And then I'm going to save and close. And then what I want to do is I always want to keep a copy of this somewhere where I can find it, because what this is this is in your computer right now. So if you're working in the labs, okay, you have to essentially, you know, basically this is in the, you know, if this is a lab computer, it's in the lab computer. So if you leave and you don't take your CTB file with you, then it's stuck in the lab computer. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it where I can find it. Okay, so let's say my desktop, and you should always, always, always keep it where you can find it.